When the PlayStation Portal was first announced, it looked like a disappointing device. It was a $200 handheld that could only stream games, not much thought was put into the design, and overall the features seemed underwhelming. It certainly was not a PlayStation Portable type of device, and more often than not, playing games via streaming is not great. But then it released and the initial reviews for it were actually decent. Since then, the PlayStation Portal has continued to become better and better until I now have to admit, I was completely wrong. The handheld I thought for sure would be bad and utterly fail has actually become quite successful. PlayStation Portal released November 15, 2023 and sold quite well, though there were many scalpers trying to sell them. The gimmick of the device was simple: play your PlayStation games over your Wi-Fi, not needing to be stuck in front of a TV. With this in mind, let's talk about the Portal's features. You still have haptic feedback, adaptive triggers, and vibrations just like a regular controller would. The LCD screen itself is quite large at 8 inches, which is larger than most handhelds on the market. Further, the screen is 1080p and supports up to 60 FPS. The battery life is also on par with other handheld devices, lasting between 4 to 8 hours depending on how you play. But obviously the most important aspect of this device is how well the experience is playing games. Based on initial reviews, the PlayStation Portal was quite respectable. Even with good internet, streaming games can be iffy, but gamers and reviewers seem to enjoy the gaming experience that the Portal was offering. However, once again there was a caveat to all this. You need good Wi-Fi. And of course, there were other drawbacks on top of this. The Portal has an audio jack, so it supports wired headphones, however, there's no broad Bluetooth support. This does make sense because of latency issues with streaming games and outputting audio, but still, it's a negative. Additionally, the largest drawback was that this was purely a companion device, requiring a PlayStation 5 in order to access and stream games. So, instead of just paying $200 for a handheld, you would need to spend hundreds to get a PS5 first. However, things changed quite drastically 1 year later. In November 2024, Sony rolled out an update for the Portal that was game-changing. Though technically a beta, this cloud streaming update made it so gamers no longer needed a PlayStation 5 to stream games. Instead, the Portal would be streaming from the cloud, not a PS5. Now, gamers would still need to be subscribed to the premium PlayStation Plus subscription, but overall it's a much better situation. Then, in April of this year, there was another meaningful update. Gamers can now record gameplay and take screenshots while playing on the device. The recorded gameplay or screenshots are then sent to the PS Plus Cloud account where they can be accessed anytime. Of course, to be fair, this has been a feature since PS4 and likely should have been there at the Portal's launch, but at least it's there now, so better late than never, I guess. Regardless, updates like these offer a more robust product, and now the barrier to entry is far lower than it was at launch, and the sales reflect that. By the end of 2024, it was reported that the PlayStation Portal had quietly sold over 2 million units and was performing above Sony's expectations. According to Sony, the PlayStation Portal was quite the success, which is great news for its future. One executive has stated that they'll continue making updates to the Portal in the future and are listening closely to community feedback. However, one question you may have is why does Sony consider 2 million units a resounding success? Though there are no direct answers, there are two likely explanations. One reason is that Sony does not view the Portal as a direct competitor to the Switch, Steam Deck, or other handheld device. The Portal exists only to stream and play games and has a much lower price point, so Sony is likely judging the Portal's performance by different metrics. But second, and more importantly, the PlayStation Portal likely has a good profit margin. Given the $200 price point of the handheld, it means that the cost to make it must be relatively low, allowing Sony to have a larger profit margin on each unit sold. Not to mention, every Portal owner needs to subscribe to the premium PlayStation Plus subscription, so either way they're getting good margins off Portal sales. So, is everything now great about the Portal? No, obviously not. For example, in some games there are stuttering issues. Then there are also updates that are not as meaningful. The most recent update in June was quite small, but apparently took ridiculously long to download, only changed device stability, and did not fix those stuttering problems. Additionally, there are also cheaper ways to remote play using other devices as well, so the PlayStation Portal is by no means a perfect handheld. Still, there is a lot to potentially look forward to in the future, as there are updates that are coming, hopefully ones that make the Portal far better. For example, being able to stream more games generally, having the Portal be able to play PlayStation games on the PC, and general streaming upgrades could continue making the Portal a more attractive device to buy. Similarly, Sony could also put out another variant of the Portal altogether, such as an upgraded version with an OLED screen, longer battery life, etc. Just don't raise the price. Regardless of the future, the PlayStation Portal to many gamers is currently a great handheld, and one that often does its job well if you have the internet to support it. And for me personally, it's been surprising to see how well received the Portal is, because it really has quietly become a success. So, here's hoping it continues to have a bright future. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you all in the next video.